Hey, Kelsey, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
I like your accoutrement in your background. You have some tinsel behind you.
Thank
You've got a
you.
little neon
Yes.
sign. Do what you love.
Uh-huh.
Woo, woo. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
I love it. Love it. For those of
Thank
our
you.
listeners who don't know you, you're a New Orleans hairdresser who
Hmm.
started Goddess Glitter Hair. And we're going to talk about all that. But first, you
Hmm.
just told me that you were in Portland. So tell us about what it's like growing up in Portland and how you found your way to the hair business.
Totally. Portland was amazing growing up. I love the Pacific Northwest, and I'm honestly missing that a little bit being in New Orleans. It's very flat here. I've realized that I am a mountain girl. I am a stormy beach weather girl for sure. And yeah, growing up in Portland was really fun as a kid. You got to just like run around and do all the things and be in nature. And yeah, I have a lot of really good friends there. I'm, 37 years old, so I just left my hometown. So I was very established there. My whole
Yeah.
family is there. I'm definitely missing them. But the winters were a little rough, a little gray, a little rainy, a little hard to get through. Come March, April, you're just itching to get out. So I had a different experience this winter. It was nice and sunny and warm. So,
Hold on, because you moved
oh,
before the winter? When did you move to New Orleans?
so I moved to New Orleans at the beginning of summer last year, which wasn't ideal timing because the summer in New Orleans is
R-
brutal.
Roasting. It's not even roasting,
Roasting.
it's like a steam oven. I just got a steam
Yeah.
oven.
Yeah.
So,
No, that's like it's winter. Like you are inside in the
yeah,
AC. Like outside is not fun.
right. And why do all the restaurants put the air conditioner down to Baltic when it's 1,000 degrees outside? I'm from Dallas, listeners
Yeah.
know that. From Dallas, similar. I think New Orleans is a little bit worse in terms of humidity, maybe heat, but similar. You are roasting, you sweat within 3 seconds, right?
Yep.
And then you walk into the restaurant for dinner and there's snow coming out of
Yeah.
the vent.
Yeah, I was actually just at the dentist this morning, and it's hard because it's 90 degrees out already in the morning. So you're wearing, a 90-degree weather outfit, and you go to the dentist, and I'm sitting there, and they actually gave me a blanket because I
Why
was
is that?
cold, because it was so cold.
Why do they do that?
I
Is
know.
that like the only way to cut the
They want to
humidity?
shock us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, my mom has been complaining for my entire life. And I remember I would sometimes get like a cold or whatever because I'd be
Hmm.
sweating, go inside and then freeze and then go outside and sweat. And it was like, anyway. All right. So you've been in New Orleans. So are you liking your move generally that you decided?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Very much
Good.
so.
Good. And
Yeah.
so how did you find the hair industry? When did you do it? Give us a layout.
Yeah. Well, growing up, I was always doing hair. I was that girl who was like at soccer practice before our games. I would do the matching, like colored rubber bands where it was like woven back into little half ponytail, and then everyone on my team would have the same hairdo that I would do. And then in high school or even like middle school, going to the dances, I was always the one without my own hair done because I would be doing everybody else's hair before my own, and then we'd run out of time because it was just a bunch of girls getting ready in one bathroom. So it was just, I felt like it was a little bit of destiny for me. It was something that I always wanted to do and gravitated towards. And then out of high school, I dabbled around in college a little bit and just wasn't really picking up on anything like that. And then my mom was like, you should consider doing hair. That's something that it was a passion of yours and something that you are good at. And that's when I went to cosmetology school. And I don't know, 20 when I started, 19, 20 when I started. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. And so you get out of cosmetology school, you go to a
Hmm.
salon,
Hmm.
and was it just smooth sailing?
No, no, it was
Why
not.
not?
I mean, this was like 17 years ago. I did not learn that much in cosmetology school. I went to, and I don't know necessarily what other people's experiences are with real like hands-on, but like we did so many perms. Like I could perm anybody. But like other than that, we really learned just the basics and really just how not to like burn people with chemicals or, stab them with your shears, whatever that was.
Right.
So I did not feel very equipped, and it felt very trial and error. There wasn't as much, at least to my knowledge, there wasn't as much education out there. Now it's super available, but this was like pre Instagram, well, I mean, that was like just starting, but pre everything. So it was a little hard starting out, but I realized kind of quickly that I needed to, really experiment, but be intentional and focus on what I was doing so I could learn quicker and not like continue to maybe make the same mistakes, and obviously watch the more senior stylists at the salons that I was working at. But it took a little while to get my footing for sure.
Okay. So I'm really looking forward to the hair horror story question at the end of this episode.
Oh,
But in the meantime,
dig in the archives for that.
yeah, I'm giving you an advance notice now. So you're gonna have at least half an hour to think of the best one.
Okay.
Okay. So now connecting the dots between kind of your early career and where you are now. Your life behind the chair, how would you summarize it? Would you summarize it as you started off kind of slow in terms of technical knowledge and stuff like that, but then when you really became intentional about learning, you got your feet under you and were able to be successful?
Oh yeah, for sure. It took like a few years to kind of understand even just how to deal with clients, not even the skill level of it, but just the business side of it, and how to maintain relationships with people, and maybe how to, I don't know, be a little more professional behind the chair. I felt like that was like a little bit better for some client retention, or at least the clients that I was wanting that would give me better business. So yeah, it took a little while, but then things just kind of took off completely. And I worked at different salons. I felt like I always wanted to level up a bit. And with each salon I would move to, there were better stylists there or more stylists there. And so I was able to kind of just pick up on that. There was a few times when stylists would leave and they would leave me their clientele. So that definitely built it up like quickly too. I was really lucky that they entrusted me to do that. So
Yeah. That's great. And so about how often would you move salons on average?
At the beginning, probably once a year.
Oh my God.
Which is normally kind of like it just
A lot.
in life. Yeah, it was. I mean, the first handful of years, and at the very beginning, I wasn't doing hair full time. I was still like bartending and working in the restaurant industry. And so I was kind of doing both because I needed to, make ends meet at the same time. And I wasn't doing that just right out of school.
Sure.
So it was like once a year. But that's what I do that with when things are no longer serving me. I give it a solid year. I think a year is a really good time to put your all into something and see if it works for you. And then by that point, assess if you've kind of grown out of it or if you're wanting to grow out of it, and then kind of level up a little bit.
Okay, that makes sense. What was your experience through COVID? Because
Oof.
Oregon was pretty bad with the shutdowns. I mean, I'm sitting here in California. California was bad. The Northeast, particularly New York, was bad. So what was that experience like for you?
Yeah, so in 2019, I really started my business, Goddess Glitter. And that was like, I was really focused on that about 50%. And then 50% was, I was still working full time behind the chair doing, all services. But I was really focused on growing my business because I really wanted to focus on that. And with that kind of income from that part of my business, I was able to open up a salon. So I opened up a 3-chair salon in February of 2020. So
Beautiful.
2 weeks before we shut
timing.
down.
Yeah.
So it was literally 2 weeks before we shut down. So that was a little bit brutal. That was hard.
Yeah.
I feel like I blacked out a lot of that beginning COVID stuff, because there was nothing in Oregon at least. It was a few months where we weren't allowed to really do much of anything. And so
Yeah.
I just had this brand new salon that I just poured all of my money into and all of my excitement and passion. And then I had, no stylists and no clients for the foreseeable future. So I panicked a little
Did
every
the
day.
landlord make you pay rent?
Yes.
Yeah. Most did.
Yes. He certainly did. I actually,
Almost all.
yeah. So I was at that point. So I had broken my wrist in 2019, and that's what was kind of the catalyst for me putting a
Oh.
lot of my focus into starting my business because I wasn't able to do hair for, it was a few months, which turned into 6 months, which turned into a repeat surgery, which turned into 9 months. It
Oh
was a
my
whole
God.
thing.
Well,
Yeah.
hold
So
on. Don't
yeah,
just gloss over that.
gloss over
That's
that. Yeah.
huge. So you broke your wrist doing what?
Snowboarding.
Ah,
Beautiful
snowboarding.
Oregon mountains, snowboarding.
Action sports.
Yeah.
They're fun until they're not.
Yes.
Okay, so did you have insurance?
So I did have health insurance. However, it was a weird blessing in disguise. I had gone to Thailand for a month prior to this break, and my mom actually had gotten me for Christmas a day pass to the mountain, and I didn't use it before I went to Thailand because in the back of my head I was like I was going to a yoga retreat in Thailand. I'm like I just don't want to risk it. I've snowboarded. I was like snowboarding for like 8 years. I used to be on a snowboard team. Like I knew what I was doing, but still, you never know what's going to happen. And I
Right.
was just like a little wary about it, so I didn't go. I went to Thailand for a full month. And then, right when I got back, before I was going back to work at a new salon at that point, I was
Oh,
shifting salons. I broke my wrist, and so the night I broke my wrist, or the morning after when I broke my wrist, I woke up and I opened my email, and I saw an email from my insurance provider that said that they had just dropped me because apparently when I was in Thailand, I didn't pay the whatever you call it. I didn't pay
yeah.
the premium.
The premium. Yeah.
And yeah, so I didn't pay that apparently. Even though I'd set up an auto payment, it was a whole thing. They realized they were wrong, but then they were like, we can't
Oh,
instill it for another 30 days. And at that point, I was like, well, I'm out of work, so I'm going to sign up for the state health insurance, which
wow.
ended up actually covering me so much more than my insurance would have. So it was like a really odd thing to have I've not ever broken a bone before.
Yeah.
And to have that one time the next morning wake up and see that my insurance had dropped me. But I can think on my toes. I figured it out and it ended up probably saving me money in the long run.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Did you have disability insurance?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
Or not that I was like aware of. I did not have a great business mindset back in 2019.
Yeah. Well, it's not fun to think about all these things. And
No,
when things are going well, you think to yourself, why do I need to think about things like that? Right. And then things go
I
bad. And
was
it's like,
invincible.
shit, I can't believe I didn't do
Yeah.
that thing.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. So very interesting. All right. So how long were you out of work? Or at least behind the chair work?
Yeah, so I was out of work for, it was about, I want to say it was about 3 months that I was out of work. I had to have a surgery. The surgery was scheduled for I think I had to wait almost 3 weeks to get the surgery. So things were really spaced out. I was just walking around with like a broken wrist without a cast on or anything for like three
Really?
weeks.
Interesting.
It was kind of wild. But I mean, it wasn't, falling off or anything like
Flopping back
that,
and
but it
forth?
was still broken. Yeah, it wasn't flapping all over the place. Thank God. I couldn't do the dishes though. I had to have all my friends and family come help me with everything. It was a very humbling experience, but it was one of those things. And I up until this day, it was probably like the best worst thing that's ever happened to me.
Interesting.
It like made me start my business. Like I really felt cared for, and like people showed up for me with that when I don't ask for help and I needed to have help. And having people help you is, yeah, humbling, but can be really profound. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
let's get
Yeah.
into Goddess Glitter. So
Uh-huh.
you started it. I'm assuming you had the kernel of an idea before you broke your wrist. You just hadn't
Yes.
actually knuckled down and got
No.
it done. And then you break your wrist, and you're like, oh, perfect time to start this business that I've been noodling on.
Basically, yeah. I kind of felt like at that point I had nothing else to lose. It was one of those moments, where I knew that I wasn't going to be working for a long time. I had made the decision that I was going to move back in with my mom for the first time since moving out when I was 18, and I was like, okay, this is kind of it, and I have extra time. I don't want to just stand by idly. I know that I love doing hair. I had this idea, and I had already done a photo shoot. I already had like registered the business. I had picked out the name, but and I think I had a website at that point, but I don't think I'd made like a sale or anything. And looking back at that, like my packaging was really, it was just, it was a baby business. It was the very,
Right.
very beginning of it. And so, yeah, right after I had broken my wrist, it was just, I had extra time and I just kind of felt like, well, if not, now, when? And
Right.
just definitely risked it. I mean, I was like, well, I'm already going to be broke. I might as well just spend all my own money doing this and just see if it will work. But I knew it would work. When I had the idea for this business, it came to me like a lightning bolt. I've never felt anything like that before in my life. And I was literally riding an elevator up to my apartment. And for some reason, that's always like struck me because it was like a total elevator pitch. Like everything was just like, bam, this is yours. I got to my apartment. I started just scribbling things down, and then it sat for a few months. So when I knew I was going to kind of put everything into it, it felt like it's always felt like this was mine to do. So it felt like it was a risk, but I also didn't feel like I was, doing it all for nothing.
Right. Oh, very interesting. Okay, so give us like an evolution of the business. So tell us like first steps. You have to get inventory. You've got to find a supplier. All that.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Oh yeah. It first started when I had seen hair tinsel out in the world. And my dad's partner had it in her hair, and I was like, "Oh, I like it. I like
Mm-hmm.
it. I like sparkly things. I go to festivals. Like I'm fun. Uh, but it just didn't. I ordered some online, and I got it in, and I was like, not. It just wasn't the vibe for me. It just looked a little chunky. It just looked a little. Just wasn't it. And then I'm trying to figure out online how to do it, and everything's just challenging. And you're like, watching a video and you're rewinding it a million times, and it's grainy. It's on YouTube, and they're doing a million different things, and then so I was experimenting. So yeah, it started with me, just realizing that I wanted to improve that entire process, and so I needed to first like order the actual strands themselves and compare different strands, and then use a few different like methods and compare those, and then figure out kind of what tools were needed. And that was, at the beginning I had the strands, and I had a few tools, just like the bare basics of things to kind of get going. But yeah, I had to figure out how to package things because nothing's coming like pre-packaged. It's not just hair tinsel that I'm putting in a pretty package. So it was like, how do I do this? My dad is a contractor, and so he helped me build this kind of machine that we have a couple of now that help practice or help excuse me that help package the product because you're dealing with fine little strands, and they need to be counted out, and they need to be straightened, and they need to be put into packaging. And obviously it can't take 5 hours for me to do it. That would just make no sense. So
Yeah.
yeah, it really started out pretty gritty.
Interesting. Okay, so you figure all that out, and then you go
Hmm.
out to market. And
Hmm.
where are you selling? Where were you selling? And kind of bring us up to what you're doing now.
Yeah, I mean, mostly on Instagram is where I'm connecting with hairstylists, and like Pinterest. But I just have a website, and people are finding me there. And I did a hair show in, what was that? I guess that was 2020 at the very beginning in Long Beach.
Yep.
And that was my first hair show that I did, and that was
Okay.
really
I was
super fun.
there.
That's actually yeah. Were you there?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Yeah. I drove all the way from Portland overnight, got there with my assistant, just white
Wow.
knuckling it.
Nice.
Set up the booth, had no idea what I was doing. Like all of this was like I really had no idea what I was doing. And some days I still feel like I have no idea what I'm doing. I definitely know a lot more now, but you kind of I've been scared the whole time and just doing it and seeing if it works. So
Yep.
yeah, hair
That's
shows
part of it.
and Instagram honestly, and just people like repping it too and knowing that my message will land with enough people.
Okay, so are you selling wholesale to hairdressers to resell, or are you selling directly to consumers, or both?
So I'm selling to hairstylists. We actually have so I used to just have a product and then I was teaching people in salon and that just wasn't working super well because to really be able to provide a full service of like, knowing how to communicate with your clients and manage expectations and placement and technique and, the whole thing from A to Z. I realized that I needed a certification. So I actually do have a certification online right now. It's called Sparkle Like a Pro. And that is for hairstylists that teach them how to provide this service with, confidence and, proficiency and all of the things. So, yeah, I mainly only sell to hairstylists to be able to provide the service. Sometimes people, they are able to just buy the product and try it on their own, but I don't really recommend people do that. It's simple, but it's not easy.
How long does it take to get certified?
Well, I mean, it doesn't take very long. The certification itself, front to back, is about 2 hours, 2-ish hours. So it's not very long. Obviously, you have to practice. There's some rewinding and all of that, but it doesn't take too long. I have a little survey at the end of it, just kind of asking people what they liked about it, what they didn't like about it, or, just getting information from people. And what people overwhelmingly say is that it was, everything they needed and nothing they didn't. And kind of what we were talking about earlier, it's like, we don't got a lot of time. Like I just
Yeah.
am trying to give people exactly what they need. And it's all of the information that I picked up over, I mean, it's been like 6 years that I've been providing the service now. So I definitely know answers to every single question people have and don't even know they have.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so tell us about pricing. How do you price such a thing? I imagine most of the listeners do not have this as a service that they offer.
Sure.
So they're wondering, as I am, what do you charge for such a thing? Is it per tinsel strand? Yeah, go ahead.
It depends on the environment. We have kind of in salon, or if you're doing an event, the pricing is a little bit different. But if you're doing an in salon service, if you're doing about just an hour, let me just, that's the average an hour. Some people do like 30 minutes, some people do 2 hours. But for an hour, hairstylists are charging at minimum, we train you to charge $100 an hour, but often they're charging $120 to $150 an hour.
And that would give the client how many strands?
Around like 50.
Oh, 50, that many. Interesting. So to give you a little background on the knowledge that I have, it's not a lot, but I have a newly turned
Early 2000s Beyonce? No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a daughter who just turned 14 and she's been doing the tinsel for years. Now,
Yeah.
she goes to Salon Republic to, a hairdresser that I know and stuff. And I have no idea what my wife pays, when they leave the studio. But I've been seeing tinsel around my house for many years, and it's really neat. Now her head is going to be smaller, but it always seems like she's got, I don't know, making up the number 5 strands in there. Maybe it's more, and it just, you need 50 in order to make it look like there's 5. Depending on the angle and the perspective that you're looking at the head or whatever. But in an hour, you could do about 50. And is that a normal amount for an adult head?
It's really based on like what you are going for. Some people want 15 minutes, some people want 30 minutes, some people want an hour. But what the piece that I wanted to kind of elevate with hair tinsel was that I wanted it to look more like little glittering highlights. The service that I call and that I train people to call it is a glitter light as opposed to hair tinsel. I actually
I
like
like
hair
that.
tinsel is what everybody knows it as, but I do not say hair tinsel to my clients because they immediately think, you know, I don't know, farmer's market or like a little childish, or it just isn't, you know, it's not like the professional woman's like, now I can go to work and have this in my hair. And
Got
for
it.
me, what I wanted to do was shift that look to something that was more elevated that you can have at, you know, really nice salons that aren't just doing it on the children of the clients, but also the clients. And so instead of doing often tinsel applications will be, they're slightly thicker strands. So I was really specific about the strands that I got, and they're pretty delicate. And they also hold curl really well and they mimic hair. So I wanted them to look like they're a part of the hair. And instead of tying the tinsel in the center of the strand and then having kind of two pieces come off that knot, we tie at the end of the strand. So it's one more it's like a single delicate strand that is coming out of, it looks like it's coming out of the head. And so it is designed to kind of look more natural.
Yeah. So for the listeners who are not watching this, now this is going
Yeah.
to be on YouTube, but mostly our listeners listen on the podcast, audio only. I'm looking at your hair and it's very pretty. It's subtle. There are glitter lights, I think is a great name for it because that's really the description. It's subtle. It looks like it's part of your hair. It's flowing with your wave, perfectly.
Thank you.
And, so I could see what you're saying. And it's definitely better than, I would say, the ones that my daughter typically has. And that may be because, I don't know, she doesn't style it the same or whatever. But
Or she doesn't use goddess glitter.
or she doesn't use goddess. Maybe she does. I don't know. But I could see that this is definitely an elevated version of kind of your first generation hair tinsel.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
That's what I really wanted to do.
And I imagine that some of that is going to be in the judgment of not necessarily the client, but the hairdresser who's doing the service on the client, picking the right color that's going to coordinate well or blend well or match or, whatever. And I'm sure you talk about this in the certification. You're like, yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. And that's really what the certification is designed for, because I talk to stylists. I do calls with people to talk about it. Every single week, I probably talk to 10 to 20 stylists, and everybody kind of comes in with the same, it's the same age ranges that they think it's going to, apply to, and choose your favorite color, approach.
Right.
And I'm like, as like a professional hairstylist, and you're charging $120 to $150 an hour for something, like it's your responsibility to really guide the service and suggest different colors and suggest different color combinations. Brown is one of our most popular colors that we sell,
Yeah,
and it's like, because you're introducing it to clients and as a hairstylist, your whole thing is like making your client feel beautiful. Like, why else are you doing hair? You want that, like, you want to help them feel really good about themselves. You want them to feel confident. You want them to get compliments. And this, for me, is like such a cheat code that's like, it's the cherry on top. You can do it on the professional woman that can't do vivids in her hair, that might not want to cut their hair or style it differently, but they're looking for a change when they come in.
Yeah, absolutely. I could see how, what you've done there with your hair, it could be in the professional environment for sure. If you're an attorney or whatever, absolutely acceptable because it's so subtle, yet it's got those little shimmers of kind of awesomeness. All right.
I mean, and then you can do a 2-hour-long appointment and it's not subtle anymore. Then you look like
And
a
that would
mermaid.
be there you go. That would be a 100 strands, right? Ish.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And so how does it adhere to the hair shaft? What method did you choose?
It's a single knot. You just tie a single knot onto a single hair strand.
Okay. And is there, I'm sure there's tools involved that make that easy. And do you
Yes.
actually have to cut the spare strands that come out of the
Yes.
knot?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And you cut it right up to the knot. And so just to,
Oh yeah.
it
Do you?
just looks like it's coming out of the head.
I'm looking at Kelsey's head through the screen right now. So can you do that on yourself?
Yeah. I can do it on myself.
Right. Maybe not everybody.
I think once you know how to do it, it is the big thing with this is the muscle memory of it makes it super, super quick and easy. At the
Yeah.
beginning, like anything else, it's going to feel
Right.
a little funky. But once you learn how to do it, I mean, I can't do it on the back of my head,
Right.
but I
Right.
can do anything I can see.
Okay, so then you do this. You suggest doing this before a haircut, so then it becomes similar in length to the rest of the hair that it's trying to blend in with.
I suggest doing it at the end of any hair service that you're doing. You do go through and you cut each of the strands as you go. And I recommend that people not actually cut it to the length of the hair, but a little bit shorter because it blends in really nicely. If you cut it to the length of the hair as you were doing like a haircut or something like that, you also don't want to use I mean, I'm particular about my cutting shears, and I'm like, this is any material that's not hair. And so our certification or, the intro kit that you get does come with its own little pair of scissors that I would recommend you use. But I
Yeah,
do think cutting it a little bit shorter makes it actually blend and match better. So
yeah,
this
that
is like the end of any service you do. Again, just a little
got
cherry
it.
on top.
Very interesting. But you need to get
Mm-hmm.
it to wave and all that, and
Mm-hmm.
and follow the. So maybe before the styling.
Before the style. Yeah, before
Got
the
it.
styling. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Got it. Okay, and it can take heat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you can blow dry the living shit out of it and it doesn't
Yep.
melt. Okay.
No. Up to
Very
400
interesting.
degrees. And I tell everyone if they're coming back in with like heat damage, it's kind of the canary in the coal mine. Like they need to be using heat protection on their hair. We are not making pizzas.
And does it
So,
take styling product properly and behave well after putting in mousse or whatever?
yeah, I mean, it totally behaves well. It's not hair, so it's not going to respond exactly as like hair would, but it does totally blend in with the hair around it. A lot of people are also concerned about like curly hair, naturally curly hair,
That was
and I
my
know a lot
next
of tinsel,
question.
yeah, a lot of tinsel out there is super, super straight and will look really out of place in curly hair. This is something that you can finger wrap in. You can also curl it in with just those individual curls. Yes, in a really hot shower, they'll release a little bit, but this is something that will hold that curl for a while. And people will even, if you put a little tension on the strands, if the hair is really curly, you can kind of curl it like a ribbon, and that holds the curl through like washes and everything. There's a Facebook group for all the certified pros, and I was just in there yesterday kind of looking at what people were talking about, and there was a little thread going about very curly hair, and I was really happy to hear that people were having a lot of success with adding it to really curly hair and having it look good and natural.
Does it all come in the same length?
Yes.
So I am not a candidate for this. The more I'm listening to
What do you
you,
mean?
I'm looking at myself on the screen. I have kind of a blonde gray mess
Yeah.
of fuzz, and I'm thinking there's no tinsel that's going to blend with this.
Oh, I think you have great hair. I have great hair for it. We have a beautiful silver. They're
Yeah, but
all the
how do you
colors
get
are.
it to match the curl?
Oh, you just kind of wrap it in there. It would be perfect.
Yeah, but then I'd have to do it every time,
No, you
Like my
wouldn't.
hair
No,
is
you. I
naturally
promise
this
you, you
curly.
wouldn't. No. Mm-mm.
Like
It
when I
it
get it,
plays really nice with hair. Like it finds its little curl it wants to just live in, and then it will live there.
it does.
Yep.
It like snuggles up in a curl and
Mm-hmm.
just
Yeah.
that's
It's like
where
this
it
is where I want to be.
lives. It's happy there. It's
Yeah.
protected
Uh-huh.
from the elements. Interesting.
Totally.
Okay, well, I don't know.
I've
I
done
I
lots of men's hair with
no, you
this.
haven't.
Okay. Yes, I
You
have.
have?
Yes, I have.
That was my
That's
next
what I'm
question.
saying. This is good for like everyone. You don't think it will be, but it will be. People want a little sparkle.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So are you behind the chair these days, or are you just running the business full time?
I'm running the business full time, and then I do see clients on the side just for glitter lights. I don't do hair other than friends and family.
Got it.
That will never let me go.
I know. Your mom is going to make you do her hair forever.
I know. Well, I just moved and she just had to go to somebody new just for the
Ah,
first time. So obviously I heard all about that and I will be
yeah.
bringing my shears back when I
Oh
visit
boy.
next time. Yeah.
I'm sure you referred her to somebody.
I did, and then she didn't go to them, which we had a very stern talking about it later. I referred her to somebody that I used to work with that I knew that she would love, and I knew she'd love the salon. And I was like, go for the experience too. Like
Yeah.
it's a whole thing. It's not
Yeah.
just the cut. It's the conversation. It's the
Yeah.
salon space. And then she asked one of her friends where they got their haircut, and then she went there.
Isn't
And
that
then
amazing?
and then I know. And then she had her tail between her legs a little when she had to tell me about it.
Your own mom
I know.
doesn't take your advice.
I know.
Here you are, an
We had a
expert.
stern talking. Okay.
Your whole life you spent in Portland. You worked in like 87 different salons there because you moved so often.
Okay,
You
I'm not
knew
87 years old.
You, you knew every hairstylist license in the state of Oregon, and you refer the best one to your mom, and she doesn't go.
Yeah,
Unbelievable.
I know.
It's just the way
I
things
know.
work sometimes. It's
I
very
know.
funny.
I'm gonna have her listen to this podcast.
No, she better listen to this podcast. Okay, so let's get to that hair horror story that I kind of queued you up on.
Goodness.
You had to have had a lot. I mean, you probably butchered a
Yeah.
good number of people in the beginning.
Yeah, a bit.
Let's talk about one of those.
Yeah. The one that specifically comes to mind, there were definitely a few color situations, where you end up in the back room and you're just sweating and your hands are sweating and you just don't know what to do. So that happened more than once. But when you mentioned it before, the one thing that popped into my head was when I had a client of mine who had seen me probably 5 times at that point. So we were starting to establish a relationship, and she came to me right before her wedding.
Oh,
And we were doing a bang trim. And I
right
picked up
before the
wrong
wedding,
pair.
a bang
Yes.
trim.
Yeah,
Jeez.
just a little bang trim, probably a week before the wedding.
Okay, so
And
it wasn't a transitional
no.
bang trim. It was just a trim. Okay.
Yeah, she wasn't getting brand new bangs. It was just
Okay.
doing what we had already done. But I picked up the wrong pair of shears. I thought I had my thinning shears and I had my shears. And
No.
so
So she went emo immediately.
it could have been a lot worse than it was. I luckily caught myself, but there was a chunk, that I had to work on to smooth out. But I cried in front of her. I cried as I was fixing it. I felt so horrible. And she was the sweetest woman ever. And she was like, it's fine, and luckily I didn't just chop her bangs off. But there was a chunk that I really had to smooth out. So that was the only time I can remember crying as I was fixing someone's hair.
That's really funny. So you didn't have to go asim
Hilarious.
with it? You didn't have to go asymmetric with it? You
No.
were able to, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. But it wasn't not there after.
Yeah.
It was still a little noticeable. At least, we can all notice our own mistakes so much more. But no, it was there. Yeah.
Nice. All right.
But,
Well, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Crying when you're with a client, I think I would control myself better now, or I'd at least go in the back and cry and get it out. But I just didn't know what to do. It was late at the salon. We were the only people left in there, and I'm just like,
All right.
it was sad.
Uncontrollable
but you better believe
problem.
I never did that again. It's those sort of mistakes that it's every single time I'd look at my shears and I'd be like, these are my thinning shears, and then I would go at it.
Yeah. That's really funny. Good advice for the young
Yeah.
beauty professionals out there. All right. Well,
Yeah.
this has been
Pay attention
great.
to what
Where
you're
do
picking up. Yeah.
What's that?
I said, pay attention to what you're picking up.
Pay attention to what you're picking up. It's with so many things that are detail
Yeah.
oriented. Pay attention to the hair color. Look a couple times at the label. Make sure it's
Yes.
this and not that. Yeah,
Yes.
it's don't be on autopilot. All right, where do people find you? Goddess Glitter Hair on Instagram. Anywhere else?
Yes. Goddessglitterhair.com is my website. Pinterest, Goddess Glitter Hair. Everything's Goddess Glitter Hair.
Everything's Goddess Glitter Hair. If
Yeah,
somebody,
YouTube, Goddess Glitter Hair. Don't got a lot on there, but a girl has dreams.
YouTube's hard. Takes a lot of effort, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we're on YouTube. We finally,
so you know.
got to the point where, but of course, we're using this platform here that's recording us. Before this was available, Donovan had to be there and record, which was a whole different thing, right? It'd take a whole day to get a podcast done, and that's hard when you do a weekly podcast. So, all right, Goddess Glitter Hair. If somebody goes to Amazon and looks for Goddess Glitter Hair, are they gonna give you? Are they gonna show your product or a bunch of competitors?
They're going to show a bunch of cheap competitors, and then you're going to come back to me crying.
Because
That's
it's
what I hear all the time. People order on Amazon, and I didn't want to be on Amazon because I have a lot, like the certification really is crucial for a lot of people. I used to not have the certification, and I had a lot of people start this and never finish it and never feel confident. And so it's not just the product. It really is the support and like the community we have behind it. So no, I'm not on Amazon.
I love the word crucial. Crucial. It just
Crucial.
has so much consequence to the word crucial. I like how you use that. It is crucial for you to go and get certified. Do not go to Amazon
You
because
just waste your time.
that would be non-crucial. You want to definitely be crucial.
Yeah. Well, you're not buying your back bar from Amazon.
Yeah. Well, right. I mean, Amazon was trying to get into that game, but it looks like it's not been very successful.
They don't need that.
No. All right. Well, thank you, Kelsey. Crucial Kelsey.
Thank you.
This has been fun.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.